Hi,
I'm Brittany,
I'm Brad.
and we are Audio Shelf.
We want to just let you know that the book that we're about to review, we wanted to love it so much.
We really did.
So we're about to discuss the book Song Below Water. And who is it by, Brittany?
Bethany C. Morrow.
Yes. So this book, I was so excited. What were your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts were that it was going to be fantastical and also very I'm having trouble with my words today. Yeah, it was going to be like in water.
I wanted mermaids.
I thought it was going to be like mermaids and there was going to be all these fantastical elements to it, but then also, like, by the description, have it synced in with the BLM movement.
Yes.
And the importance of like ending systemic racism and police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like that is very much what it is about.
Very much.
However, it is described, the genre that it is described as is modern fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, I don't know if this is a genre, but I would say that it is abstract contemporary.
Ooh, explain that for me, because I am dumb.
I just think that it is a contemporary novel that takes place in like the today world with the today issues and problems with the universe.
Mhm.
And it also approaches it in an abstract way that is easy for teens and young adults that this book is geared towards to digest. So I feel like while it is described as fantasy, it's not so much fantasy. There are sirens and serpents, or I can't remember what those are called.
The
They're
sprites?
Gregorians.
Gregorians. I don't even remember.
It's and then there are gargoyles and stuff. But those are not the focus of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, the fantasy element is not so much fantasy as it is just an abstraction as a way to relate to the BLM movement that's happening in the book.
And even the writing style, it boils down to how the author kind of meshes the fantasy and the contemporary message that it's giving. Mm-hmm. The writing style would have been fantastic if this was just about two sisters who were facing discrimination and bonding and figuring out how to become themselves without society's kind of downputting them, you know?
Yeah.
And I just don't know if the author really like grasped the fantasy aspect to it, because there was a lot of, oh, I'm a siren and sirens are bad, or sirens, you know, we are hunted. And there was a lot of telling me about these magical creatures without showing me, without discussing the kind of mythology about it. It was a disappointment for me, because I wanted gargoyles and I wanted mermaids and I wanted sprites. And I'm not just talking about the can of Sprite.
And that's why I think that it went so well with the age range that it was supposed to be in, because it allowed those younger audiences to experience and be exposed to something that is very difficult to describe to people. It's hard to describe to a child the importance behind ending police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement. It's hard for that to happen. And I think Bethany did a great job in that respect of spinning it and putting it in a different kind of like vocabulary, kind of like, because it was sirens.
Yes.
And it was the sprites were looked at as problems, and sirens were being arrested and brutalized and killed by police officers for using their voice. And so it was very much a commentary on what is happening now, just in a different sort of package, which might be easier to digest.
Even the usage of a siren versus a mermaid, because when you hear of siren, you think of evil creatures with mouths biting sailors and that's what I think about. when I think about a siren. And so there's always a negative connotation to them. So it's not like mermaids. Mermaids are beautiful and they have sea cups on their boobs. So I really like how Bethany chose the siren over the mermaid, because essentially that is the stigma of Black individuals. That's the whole point of Black Lives Matter. It's like their lives matter.
Yeah.
So I really liked her choice of mythological.
You're making up new words.
I liked her choice of the siren. I don't know where the gargoyle came in, even though
like the bodyguard, which I did not.
I love a good gargoyle, but I'm like, girl, gargoyles. But I was thinking about this because this book is one of those books where it took me a couple of days to like really process, because I wanted so much to love it. But I think I'm just not the reader for it, you know? I think there are so many younger people, like you said, younger people that can really benefit from this type of book. But for a 30-something-year-old white man, it just wasn't the book for me, even though I really wanted it to be, because I love the message and I love the kind of the fantasy element of it. Yeah. But it just wasn't for me.
Yeah. I definitely think that this would be a wonderful book for like your godchildren to listen to.
Yes.
Because we did the audiobook version. I don't know if we have talked about this part yet. We did the audiobook version of this. So it was 9 hours and 23 minutes, which, it sounds like a long time. However, all of the information in there was important and applicable to real life.
Yeah.
Like all of the messages, the sense of fear and not belonging is absolutely what we're seeing on the news, out in demonstrations, just everywhere right now. And I think it was very important to also have this in our ears too. And so I think for your godchildren, my niece is a little bit older, so I don't know how much it would stick with them, but definitely in the range of like 9 to 17.
Especially the audiobook.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I really wish it would have been amazing if it was just contemporary. Yeah. And I think that's the trickiest part for me, is this author's voice and her writing style was made for young adult contemporary.
Yes. And I think the mythos element of it just did not need to be in there. It was very interesting, and I think it gave a great spin on it. And like we've been saying the whole time, it just didn't mesh with us. But for a younger generation, I think that getting the message across in the siren versus the locust, they also had like that thing that I think was cannibalistic.
Yeah, and I think that was the downfall, was a lot of the mythos wasn't described very well.
Yeah, it kind of like fell apart in some areas, but the main thing was the siren and police brutality, which went very well and was described very well.
Now, if you were to give me a fantasy about like sirens and these fishermen or these like hunters on the sea that were, that like to patrol the seas and, make people, primarily sirens, fear them. Now that is something I would have kind of like related to more in terms of fantasy and that whole metaphoric movement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I know. I get exactly what you're saying. And I think it also like comes back to Bethany maybe wanting to attract that younger audience with this, because the description of the book was very much playing into the siren and the BLM and putting them together. However, the only way that they were putting it together was through sirens being the ones that were like mainly brutalized by people. They were the ones that were like, we need to outlaw them. You wear these collars so they cannot affect you. All kinds of stuff like that. So I felt like the description of the book didn't really get across that contemporary feeling enough.
I agree.
Like it more so played into that fantasy realm, where when we dove into the book, no pun intended, it is more contemporary, like you were saying. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I think it was abstractly in the fantasy world, because they had the fantasy creatures, but there wasn't really much fantasy until the end, like almost the very end.
Very end. It was just like, come on, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the narration.
That's what we are so tuned in.
Got my fancy drink. I'm ready.
Yes. Okay. So our narrators for the novel are Andrea Lang and Jennifer Harrelson. I was okay.
So Effie's narrator, I do not recall which narrator it was the better one of the two.
Yes. So the book is told between two perspectives, Effie and Tavia, and both of them have about equal parts. It shifts between each chapter, trades off in between each one. So you really get both of their takes and stories. However, I felt that the main character in this book was Tavia.
Yes.
I just didn't understand like needing Effie's perspective.
Correct. And I think that going into the book, I knew Tavia was the main character. She's the siren. She's the one that's being, put down by authority and stuff like that. And then you get Effie's perspective, and we're like, what is Effie? We don't even know what Effie is.
Effie doesn't know what Effie is.
Effie don't know who Effie is. And I'm like, Effie, who are you? And so I'm like, her perspective, I don't think was needed at all.
No, like she had a great journey that she was going on, but it just didn't come across as a dual main character.
I felt like I was reading two different books, and I didn't know which book to pay attention to the most.
That is an excellent point. Like that just like perfectly wraps up everything that I've been thinking, because it just seemed like Tavia's book was winning.
Yep.
And Effie's book was just there just to add another dimension that we didn't need.
We didn't need it. Like, yeah. I don't know. And that's the thing, is I liked Effie's narrator a lot more. And that's the killer. It was just like, yeah. And I liked Tavia's narrator. There were some moments in the book, I was just like, what? Like, yeah. There's no emotion. There's just, you know who she reminded me of?
Who?
The girl from 13 Reasons Why. The friend that gets drunk and gets taken advantage of in the first season, or even in the book.
Okay.
Because did you watch the first season?
No.
I
gave it an automatic thumb down.
Yeah. So there's a character in the book, and I'm wondering if people can recognize this. Her voice was so monotone, but it was still like a Valley Girl. It was like a monotone Valley Girl voice. Mm-hmm. And that's what Tavia's narration reminded me of. And I'm interested. I kind of want to look up. I want to see their names, because I don't know the actress's name, because it sounded just like her.
It might be.
We
don't know.
It might be.
My issue with the narration for Tavia is that, yeah, it sounded monotone. And then eventually, like about midway through the book, I feel like she got a little bit more comfortable.
Yes.
With the character that she was reading. And so she was settled in. But at the beginning, there were these moments where it was kind of like she was reading the novel for the very first time. Mm-hmm. And you know, like when you're reading something, like you're getting ready to read something that somebody wrote, and you're going through it, and there's a word that you missed at the end of a sentence that you think the sentence should have ended maybe 2 words back.
I mean, we narrated our own book. That was what I did half that book.
Right.
Read it for the first time, and I sucked.
But it just felt like some of the there were some pauses in between a sentence. It was still the same sentence. If I'm just like reading this thing of, I hereby confirm that the participant does not have an elevated temperature or otherwise exhibit any symptoms of COVID-19.
Yes.
There's just a break in there, a line break that is not done with a period or a comma or anything. It's just like a missed portion of the sentence.
Yeah, there were several lulls in her narration.
In her like delivery. And so at the beginning it was really bad. And then
what was that first word? I was like
cloudy?
Cloudy. I swear to goodness, I literally rewound that audiobook about 12 times because I wanted to hear her say this word, and it sounded exactly the same in all different speeds. And what was the word supposed to be? Cloudy, or was it supposed to be something else?
I think you had said that it was cloudy and it was pronounced cowdy or something.
Yeah, cowdy. Yes. And I swear to the world, I don't even know what I'm going to swear to, but she said cowdy like 12 times out of the 12 times I listened. I was like,
at different varying speeds.
Yes. Cowdy. Cowdy.
Okay. Another thing that we need to mention.
Yes.
Is that this book at 1.0, I don't know if it was a production thing where they purposely slowed it down or something different, but at 1.0, this book is tough to get through. It is hard because those periods of lulls, like you said, are like 10 seconds long, or maybe it's not even that long, but it feels like an extreme amount of time, to the point where I took it up to 2.10, which I do not ever do because it's very hard. But this book was actually kind of perfectly sped up at that speed. I'm having trouble with my words today.
No, I definitely I did about, I think I did a 2.0 too. Like it had to let's go. All right, honey.
Yeah. And I found that it made the narration for Tavia a lot easier to understand and take in and pay attention to, rather than when it was at that slower speed.
Yeah. Now, will I read another book by this author? I think I would. Because I did like her use of language and her writing style, but I just did not like the fantasy element. So if it's another fantasy book, I might be hesitant, but I'm interested in trying it out to see if it's like Song Below Water.
Yeah. And I thought this, for some reason, when I first looked it up, was a part of a series, but the book does appear to be a standalone.
Yes.
Which
I kind of hope so.
Which makes the fact that like stuff didn't really start happening until the end of the book a little bit more disappointing. But again, I just don't think the book was for us. I think it was for truly a teen listener who maybe wants to dive into some anti-racist thoughts and understand the movement a little bit more.
And also, to add on to that, I think, as a teenager, I didn't know if I was interested in mythos and history and detail of certain types of creatures. So maybe this would be the perfect book for a teenager that's 100%. Just that wants that message, that very important message about Black Lives Matter, without that whole history of a mythos creature.
Yeah,
I will give her kudos. At least she didn't write another witch book. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Like, this idea of witches are the outcasts and they need to be stayed away from, or vampires who, I feel like sometimes the vampires go into the LGBT category, and werewolves, about the idea of changing. At least she didn't do that kind of old take on mythological creatures. Yeah,
I really appreciate that she did sirens, and she did the serpents, and she did gargoyles and sprites and all of those creatures.
I don't know I still don't know what a sprite is. Is that a fairy?
I thought it was Tinkerbell. I think they were literally Julia Roberts in Peter Pan, or in Hook, I mean. I think that's the definition of a sprite.
I laughed out loud.
Things that people blame.
I laughed out loud when you texted me. You're like, I thought a Sprite was a soda can.
I mean, accurate.
So I think we tried it. It wasn't for us, but I'm very excited to move on to the next list of books, especially books that are including, BIPOC characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And written by BIPOC voices.
Yes. So if you guys like this video, please check out our other videos and give us a like, a thumbs up, and hit that little red button down below to subscribe.
And also, if you want to follow along with us on our various social medias, tell us what you thought of Song Below Water, because we know that it is a very popular book, and people are loving it. So let us know what your thoughts were on our various social medias. We are on Twitter at AudioShelfMe, Instagram at AudioShelfMe, and Facebook at AudioShelf.
Until next time, bye.